Chapter 31. Conflicting Information. Our return was marked with dour expressions and brooding men. The entire place seemed like something had snatched their will to fight. Knight Commander Mormont gave a low howl after we had gotten situated from going through the portal. Stannis, Tyrion, Father, and others bowed in turn. "You seem to have considerably fewer men than when you left, Your Grace," Stannis observed. "They have new orders," Alan answered for me. "Your Grace," Mormont said with a tentative tone, interrupting what would no doubt have been a dressing down from Stannis. "A raven came for you yesterday. Its tidings are most unsettling." "Where is this message?" I asked as I looked at the old warrior. Tyrion stepped forward, his expression troublesome as he offered me a tightly wound scroll of paper. "Here you are, Your Grace. Prepare yourself. Its message is disheartening." I took the paper and unrolled it. "Let it be known to all the realm that Renly Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, claims by right of birth his place as Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the realm. The Iron Island and King's Landing have already declared for King Renly, and have decried the Queen as an usurper and traitor. She has abandoned the realm and taken men and resources to the Wall to indulge in lunacy. She is no longer fit to rule, and was never, by law, allowed to rule. You are commanded to bend the knee and swear your fealty to King Renlet, or be branded an enemy of the realm." The scroll was signed in Renly's hand. I stared at the missive with confusion and growing fury. None of this made sense. The Iron Island and King's Landing were devoid of people. It couldn't be coincidence that he named those two locations in particular. He had to have known. But if he knew they were empty, then surely he must have known what happened to those people. Could Renly truly be the cause of all of this? I shook my head in refusal. There couldn't be any way Renly could have made that many people disappear without trace or warning. "What does it say?" Serena asked. I passed her the scroll. She and Alan read it together, and the two of them looked at me with expressions that mirrored my own thoughts. "This makes no sense," Alan protested. "Renly isn't capable of doing any of this." "Renly?" Robert growled and snatched the letter from Serena. I could see his face grow redder and redder as he read it. "That boy's a fool." "Worse still," Stannis said as he stepped forward. "He's a fool who's being manipulated by someone powerful." "And how do you come to that conclusion, brother?" Robert asked as he crushed the letter in his hand. "You and I both know Renly lusted after the throne more than any man lusted over any woman." "Because as much as Renly might want to be able to make people disappear," Stannis replied calmly, "he cannot. He would rather have their adoration than their silence. His foolishness and ambition has no doubt entwined him with powers beyond his ken. Which means we have a third party, either forcing Renly to send these letters," I said as I considered the situation, "or is manipulating him to believe that he'll actually be able to become king." "I should think it the latter, Your Grace," Stannis replied, his tone cold. "He can play at politics, but never thinks that someone might be able to pull the wool over his eyes." "He can't be foolish enough to think that the Iron Island would declare against their own," Robert shook his head. "Men tend to believe what they want to believe if they're ambitious enough," Serena crossed her arms. "But it's unlike Renly not to question something so unlikely," Stannis grumbled. "He may act the fool, but he has a cunning mind. He'll have had some questions. If he's sending these letters, they've been answered. Whether or not he liked the answers." "Damn," I hissed, as Renly's involvement threw another problem into the mix. The others turned to look at me, their confusion evident. I shook my head. There's no sense in standing out in the cold to discuss all this. Let the men who came with us get some food and rest. Father approached and wrapped me in a thick fur cloak. My dislike for the cold had not changed, and he made the effort to ensure I would be warm. I gave him an appreciative smile as he placed an arm around my shoulder. Come, my dear, let's get you inside. A hot meal and some time to think will do you wonders. We all headed inside. Inside the room that had been set aside for Tyrion and myself was a warm meal and several dozen raven scrolls awaiting my attention. I took a seat and pulled the cloak over me tighter, still reeling from the cold. Tyrion sat across from me with a wary expression. I take it you didn't get good news in King's Landing? He asked as he poured a cup of tea for me. I got the same news in King's Landing that I received on the Iron Island, I replied as I took the cup her offered me and sipped from it. A sigh escaped me as the hot liquid ran down my throat and its warmth spread throughout my body, fighting off the cold. Tyrion stared at me wide-eyed, with a mixture of confusion and horror. He was trembling as he sat back in his chair. All of King's Landing? Just gone? From the sewers to the towers, I nodded. Not a soul left. And this business with Renly? He asked, not truly wanting to know the answer, but understanding that the information was pertinent. I sent Sir Barristan and the men we brought with us to travel throughout the south in order to discover what might be going on and send back word if they learned anything. Tyrion stared at me as is looking for the thread that linked the two ideas. Suddenly, realization hit him. Storm's End. I nodded. It's the closest seat of power to King's Landing. They were to start there and continue east. And now we know that Renly has some tie to these disappearances, he summarized, which means you may have inadvertently sent those men into Renly's hands. Fool that I am. I gave an irritated nod. Fool, Tyrion echoed. My dear, you are many things, but you are no fool. You could not have known what was going to happen. You made an intelligent decision based on the options you had available. The right decision, I might add. You couldn't very well march the whole of our forces south, hunting a mystery. I should check the areas myself, I sighed. I sipped my tea and mentally berated myself. Alan can take me to every... I should stop you right there, Tyrion cleared his throat. You are the queen, and you can, of course, do as you please. However, I must insist that you do not, I arched a reproachful brow. Care to explain? Tyrion took a deep breath. You are the queen. Your proactive nature is admirable, and many of the men are inspired by it. But every time you leave a void in morale and leadership. They're here because of you, for you. And each time you leave, the only thing that keeps them here are the dead beyond the wall. I'm open to suggestions on what I should do, I replied. In my eagerness, I wanted to simply scry where the problem was there to solve. But every time I started to do just that, I would grow nauseous, as if I were doing something I shouldn't. The sensation was almost completely debilitating. That was another mystery. Using my abilities up until this point had never caused this sort of reaction. Thinking on it, however, I'd never actually used my abilities to gain an overwhelming advantage or to simply circumvent a problem. The most egregious thing I had done in my estimation was nuking the Trinity Towers building with all of the super mutants in it. But doing that hadn't caused me any sort of nausea or pain. Well, except for the bullet wound. Had that been because nuking the building had been a viable and fair action in that universe? Up to this point, my leading thought process was that, while I could achieve all of my goals on my own, having the people in the world be a part of the solution was better. It made the achievement greater, more personal, and they would know that they had a hand in making that change. I might have led the way, but the people I led were my true instruments of change. I hadn't actually thought about why I decided to operate this way beyond the fact that it simply felt like the right thing to do. Had this been a limitation on my powers all along? Non-intervention? Or perhaps a better way to phrase it was, I was limited to indirect intervention. Were my powers, vast as they were, unable to directly solve a problem in a way that would disregard the help of the people who lived in this world? And if that was the case, why was I unable to defeat Seven in Thetis the way I did? Was it because it was a direction confrontation that came to me, or because magic was a legitimate tool I could utilize? This raised so many more questions about the nature of my powers and the nature of my reincarnations. Taking these questions into consideration, I had to factor in the mysterious glowing thread that had started to appear on occasion. I'd learned that following the thread had positive results, while not following it could lead to disaster. What all was going on with me? There had to be some greater point to all of this than I had considered. But what was it? Merida? Tyrion's voice cut through my thoughts, and I realized I had been staring into space for some time. I'm sorry, Tyrion, I sighed as I tried to shake the thought from my mind. I was a million miles away in thought. He leaned forward and placed a comforting hand on mine. You've been deal with a great many thing, my dear. Ignoring the disappearances, you've lost friends and family on the Iron Island. You're stretching yourself thin to deal with it all. I took a deep, calming breath. And I still have all these scrolls to get through. They can wait until tomorrow, Tyrion insisted. Take the rest of the day to relax as best you can. Start fresh again in the morning, I smiled. He was a sweet and caring man who only wanted what was best for those he cared for. He saw past the veneer I usually put on to hide the constant stress and doubts I'd have about my plans. He saw through the confidence and surety I wore on the outside, straight to the constant churning questions I had in them myself. Just as I was about to agree to taking the rest of the day to try and refresh my mind, the gold thread appeared once again. The thread was short this time, leading from my hand to the pile of scrolls. Something there needed to be dealt with. I grimaced and let out a sigh of frustration. As much as I would like to, husband, I have a feeling that something in here will demand my attention. I plucked up one of the scrolls and opened it. My eyes narrowed as I read through it. Black Tide?